Hey there, my name is Nathan Mills, and I want to welcome you to Music with Mills. In this show, I'm going to create a song from scratch, maybe with a theme or a feel that I'm looking for, just with a few basic instruments. So why don't you come on over here, head over here to my table with me, where I've got a few instruments set up. So I've got a keyboard, an electric guitar, and some audio software kind of running in my laptop here. And we're just going to kind of start from nothing and see if we can create a song in a short period of time. And I'll try to bring you along with my creative process here and just kind of show you a little bit about maybe the different aspects of how I'm making this music. But there's really no right or wrong way. So I encourage you to come along with me and make some music if you want to. But I think I'm going to start out here today and just maybe start on the keyboard here. And I'm looking for something maybe with a kind of funky, grungy type of vibe. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a category of sounds I've got here called booms, which is typically used in maybe kind of the hip-hop genre here. So the first one we're going to try out is something called a bending boom. So let's see what that sounds like here. So that kind of, you can hear that punchy undertone, which is why it's considered a boom in that category, but that might be a little bit too much of a keys type of vibe for what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next sound in the library, which is called command boom kick, and we'll see kind of what that sounds like. So that sounds like something that I think we can start working here with. So typically, usually, when I'm starting out with an instrument and I kind of want to make it more full or tie it together with anything else, I'll go to adding a delay and then a reverb first. Again, just to kind of fill out the frequencies a little bit more there. So we're going to start with something called sloppy delay. And so you can kind of hear that ping-ponging back and forth in the background there. So that's pretty good. I'm going to add a reverb here called gymnasium, which, as you might guess, just kind of emulates the effect of the sound being played inside of a gym. So now that's pretty close to I think what we're looking for with this. So now with this kind of noise, this grungy kind of punchy noise, typically I would associate that with maybe some minor chords. So we'll see here if we can come up with any sort of note pattern or chord pattern here. And I'm going to be looking kind of for that minor feel. So just to make it easy, we'll start with maybe E minor and see kind of how that goes. Okay, so that may be the chord pattern I'm going to go for just right off the bat there. It's just E, C, A, and we'll go E minor and A minor. So kind of bookends of minor around this chord progression we've got here. So okay, so now that we've kind of got a general idea of what we might be looking for, I'm going to go ahead and tap that tempo that I've got in my head into the software here. And then after we've got that going, which it looks like it's around 90 BPM, so after we've got that going, we're going to go ahead and just start recording that into the software, and then we can go in and kind of fine-tune some things. So let's see if we can go ahead and get that going. And I'm going to put the count in here also, what I'm doing real quick. Just a 1-bar count in so that we have a little bit of space as that metronome starts before we start recording here. So let's see if we can get that going. Okay. Okay, so now that's the general pattern that I think I'm going to kind of try to repeat here. So I'm going to go into the software with the notes that I've just recorded and do something called quantization. So we're just going to quantize it, is the verb of that. And what that does is it pulls all those notes we just recorded into steady rhythms so that anytime I was a little fast or a little slow with hitting those notes on our timeline, it just kind of pulls that all together and makes it sound a little bit nicer. So now I'm going to go ahead and take that little kind of rhythm or melody we just created, and I'm going to see what it sounds like kind of just repeating itself here. So that sounds pretty good to me. Now what I'm going to do next is something that isn't like always required, but I think we're going to do it here, which is making the note velocities all the same. So when I'm playing on this keyboard, if I press harder or softer, that will affect how loud that note is played, as if I was playing just a regular keyboard or organ or instrument here. And so that had happened in that instrument we played, but I think this might sound a little better if they're all those notes we recorded are the kind of the same level of volume. So we'll see how that sounds. It might not sound too different. So that sounds like a pretty good start to something we're looking for here. Got that kind of grungy type feel, and again we're in that minor chord range. So now what I'm going to do next is, because that instrument is so high end, I'm going to go ahead and see if we can find a bass here. See if we can add some bass notes to this to kind of have that high and low end frequency, and then we might see if we can pull in the guitar for that mid-range. So here's a bass called Bit Growl, and we'll see what that sounds like. So that's kind of mild. Not sure if that's exactly what we're looking for. This one's called Boffner. Still just a little bit mild. Let's see. So that's getting close to what we want. I'm going to try to bring my keyboard down an octave here. So let's see how that sounds with the melody we've got so far. So that might be kind of similar to what we want, but I'm not sure it's quite all the way there. So I'm going to keep looking for basses until we get something that maybe matches a little better. So that's kind of has that grunge we're looking for, but maybe is a little bit too high end. That's definitely a lot too high end. Let's see. Okay, so that might be something we want. It's got kind of that natural bass type feel, but with that grunge added as well. So let's see, let's start this melody back up and see if we can find something that we like. So it looks like something that comes up kind of often is when you're using an instrument like that first one we had, that command boom kick, sometimes the notes don't match up directly because they're falling so quickly. So when you hear that punch and it's kind of wow, like falling back down, it won't match up directly with a bass line. So what I'm going to do here is kind of look at the tones it's pulling and see if we can kind of find bass notes that match that well. So it looks like the last note is definitely an F, which is interesting because that melody we're playing at first ends on an A. So that tells me that probably that first instrument we were going with is about 2 whole steps higher. So I'm going to see if going 2 whole steps higher with the bass notes I'm playing kind of makes things match up nicely. Still doesn't quite sound right. Okay, so it looks like the second to last note is an A flat, so we know that for sure now. And I think the first note might be a C. So that sounds pretty close to right. So let's go ahead and record that in and see if we like what we're getting. Okay. So I had repeated, as you I'm sure heard, that kind of bass melody both times there. So I'm going to cut it back to just the first time I had recorded that, and we'll see if bringing the volume up on that a little bit kind of shows us whether or not it meshes well with what we've got so far. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the software again, just like we had done with that first instrument where we're taking everything and bringing it up to the same level to kind of remove any, discretion that happened while I was playing on the keyboard. So that sounds pretty good. I will admit, though, as we kind of found those notes that work well with that melody, I'm not so sure that the bass sound we chose is exactly correct. So we'll just kind of mess around and choose some other ones and see. So that's pretty high up there. Much too loud. Okay, so that sounds like something that we might look for. It's pretty low end still. So I'm going to go in and raise the filter cutoff and kind of make it a little bit higher, if that makes sense. So let's see. The notes are still sounding a teeny bit off, so we'll see if we can change that at all. I might change them from sharps to just their regular keys. Okay. So now that sounds pretty good. What I might do to add the grunge to that is maybe just add a little bit of distortion. So I'm going to go into the audio effects kind of library I've got going on here. And I'm just going to go into kind of a distortion type drive here. And so specifically, this would be kind of just called an overdrive, I guess. But so I'm going to try to add a little bit of that to this. And then the dry-wet mixture with all of these effects is kind of asking how much you want of the effect and how much of the original instrument. So I'm going to keep it typically kind of dry with a distortion effect like this so that we have mostly our original instrument with a little bit of distortion added. So we'll see what that sounds like. So that sounds pretty close to what I was looking for, but the volume's kind of loud on that bass compared to the original melody we had. So I'm going to bring the volume down a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and add just some reverb to give it a little more space. So I'm going to add garage reverb to it, and we'll see what that sounds like. So now that sounds like we're getting somewhere pretty good with it. I'm going to get the cutoff a little bit lower on that bass. Had it a little bit higher than I wanted. So that sounds like a pretty good starting point. I'm going to leave that where it is and copy that music we had just made and paste it into a section right alongside it. And we're going to go ahead and see if we can add some drums before we go into seeing if we can add some sort of riff or lead on a guitar. So I'm going to add a new track here, and we're just going to start messing around with different drum kits here and see if we can find something. There's one kit called the Animal Kit that's, we'll see if that kind of sounds like what we're looking for. So that's like a pretty heavy kit, as you can hear, so I might bring the volume down on that before we go in and try. Okay, so that sounds like something that kind of works with the sound we've already got, that drum kit. So I'm going to go ahead and record some notes on that, and then we'll mess around with effects and see if we can maybe pull it a little more close together. Okay, so now again you can see kind of our melody repeats in one measure, and we're kind of going in blocks of two. So I had recorded the same thing twice there, and we'll just quantize all of that again to make sure all the notes are the same level of loudness and length. So let's see now if we can add some kind of effect to that and make it maybe tie a little bit closer together. What I might do is add a reverb in here called Gymnasium and see if, yeah, that sounds pretty good so far. It's something that's kind of grungy, maybe hip hop, pop, something like that. So now we can go ahead and go in with that created and see if maybe there's some sort of guitar part that we could work into that. So to set up the guitar part here, typically, again, as with the instruments, kind of what you're looking for is typically you're going to want some sort of delay and some sort of reverb just to kind of fill in a little bit of space there. So I might do that, and then also kind of with that energy of kind of grungy and minor chords and whatnot, I might add some distortion to this guitar too, just so that it kind of matches the theme, the mood that we've got going on here already. So I'm going to pull in the same distortion that we used on that instrument, and again, kind of make it very dry so that mostly what we're getting through is the guitar with some distortion. So we'll see what that sounds like. So that sounds pretty close to what we're looking for. What I might do here is the distortion's kind of bringing down the high end of that. So I might bring the high end up a little bit, and we'll see what we get when we mess around with that. So that sounds like a riff just kind of messing around there. Sounds like something that might work well. So I'm going to start recording this time when we play the music. And if there's a riff that I like, I'll stop it and we can kind of cut it around a little bit and lock in what we like about it. So now I think we got in at least one take of that recording well enough to edit in the software kind of how we want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go open that clip that we just recorded, and we'll see if we can kind of mess around with that and get some sounds we're looking for. So now we recorded, again, kind of earlier how I had mentioned the melody is repeated kind of twice in a measure. So we had actually gotten two full recordings of that. So what I'm going to do is go into the audio clip and cut off the first take I had of recording that riff because it wasn't quite as clean. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete those audio clips and then duplicate them. So what we've got now is two clips of the same guitar part, and I'm going to bring one up 12 steps or just a full octave to kind of make it punch a little more and to add another layer of high end. So we'll see what that sounds like here. Now, one thing I noticed kind of right off the bat here, the clapping, that kind of snare clap type noise we've got going on with the drums, this little, it's called a burned clap. I think that could definitely benefit from kind of being drawn out a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag some reverb onto that. See if we can kind of pull that sound out and have it last for a little bit longer. So just added something called church reverb, and we'll see. So that sounds pretty good. As you can hear, it kind of repeats off and fades into this nicer, longer clap. I'm also going to bring the volume of the guitar down a teeny bit, as it just kind of is piercing a little more than my liking. Okay, so now that sounds like a pretty good place to jump off from. So at this point, now that we've kind of gotten some workings of a song, we've got a little chord pattern, got a melody going, got some guitar parts, I'm gonna listen from the very beginning and see what we've got, kind of the transitions and the build-up. So first we kind of just start with that boom sub, and then you go into having that more grungy kind of bass sound. And I might even bring the reverb on that bass up even a little more. And so now here, kind of a fun thing that you might have heard is the happy accident of recording that riff. I'll isolate, solo out that clip of guitar, and you can maybe hear the trail of my finger pulling back down the fret from the previous one. So that kind of that falling note that you get is just like a happy accident from recording two of those riffs. So that's definitely just one of those fun things where as you're messing around on your guitar or any instrument you've got and recording, occasionally you'll get these fun things that may originally seem like a mistake, but can add some unexpected fun sounds to your song. So yeah, what we've got there is a great start to a song. So what I'm going to do is kind of see how we can transition out of that into maybe a separate section, and we'll kind of just see, maybe this will just be sort of a three-part type song where you've got like a pretty big build and then it relaxes more and then goes back into that initial section. So as we're leaving that kind of larger part, the question of what to keep might kind of get challenging. So you can kind of just add and remove multiple instruments until you've got what you're looking for. So what I might do is I might remove that first instrument we had and just keep the bass and the drums. So we'll see how that sounds transitioning from our full song into that. So that's a pretty good transition into something that you could use as a verse or a bridge, or maybe just an instrumental breakdown. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep that, and then we'll see, we might wanna add something else on the high end, and we'll listen to that transition one more time, see if there's something that maybe we could add here where we just have the bass and the drums. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just see if we can add one last instrument to tie that lower section together. So I'm going to go ahead and on my keyboard here just pull the octaves up so that all the notes I'm playing are pretty high, and we'll go into the category of sounds I've got called pads, and we'll see if we can find something kind of airy maybe. So that might be a little bit too harsh for what we're looking for. We'll see if we can find something. So that's pretty good. That's kind of similar to maybe like a choir or something like that. So then what I'm going to do is bring the attack up kind of high on that so it takes a while for that note to build up. So as you can hear, it kind of takes this long pause to build. So we'll keep that there, and then maybe we'll add, again, just a typical delay and then reverb here. And we'll see if that just kind of can allow this instrument to maybe fill some more space that it wasn't able to before. So add just a trio delay to it. So you can hear it's kind of almost sounds like you're playing multiple notes at the same time with that. And then we'll add some large chorus reverb here, and we'll see kind of how that sounds all tied together. So that might be something we're looking for. We'll play around with it and see. Okay, so let's see. I think that maybe just holding a G note the entire time might be acceptable with this, so we'll see what that sounds like. So I'm not sure if the melody we've chosen kind of with that instrument pairs well with a long sine wave. So what we might do is just nix it entirely. If there's ever an instrument you feel like you're adding to a song or a piece and you don't really feel like it's fitting all that well, you never actually have to add it. So let's just have one quick last listen here to the transitions we've got and then kind of wrap things up here. So as you can see again, once we build up to that full body, it then breaks down into what is just bass and drums. And then that bass and drums can then build again into the full audio that we're looking for. So thank you so much for joining me today, making that kind of grungy type hip hop song. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to get some creative inspiration or maybe join along making music with me. And I hope to see you again. Thank you so much for watching.